Good morning. Are you just joining us? Karibu tena sana. We are glad that you have chosen to start your morning with us right here on Good Morning Kenya. I'm Jain Wambui. I would absolutely love to know where you're watching us from this morning. So why don't you go ahead and check in using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle ever remains to be at KBC Channel 1. My handle is Jain Wambui, and my colleagues, you can find them as Ray Manyara and Doreen Arange across all the socials, and we thoroughly appreciate those of you who have already started checking in. Sir Albert, good morning to you. Deno anasema, you guys look beautiful. Thank you so much. We have Kamale. Thank you so much for tuning in. Martin Nyamu, I see you. I appreciate you for contributing to today's conversation. Ruth, I also see you. Professor Gerono, one of our guests that we had in the previous week. I see Muhia Wabima. Thank you all so much for tuning in so far. We thoroughly appreciate you. But remember to also give us your location. We'd love to know which part of Kenya you are watching us from. Martins, M.K. Mathi, Michael Kinyanjui, Lennox Mwandaga na kuona hapa hivi ndani ya studio. Tom Mwema, thank you all so much for tuning in. Deno, I see you all. Keep talking to us. We'll be getting to your feedback in a bit. Now, getting into our family conversation for the day. A couple of weeks back, we started this conversation just trying to understand what is causing this unrest that we are seeing in our schools. Since schools resumed last year in November, there have been so many schools that have closed again as a result of unrest. Most of these, coincidentally, have been boys' schools. Looking at what we had from the previous conversation, we just looked at a few issues trying to understand what could be causing it. Now coming to solutions. That is where we want to pick up today, and we want to start by looking at issues to do with communication. Now, let's just get a dictionary definition of what communication means. Plain communication is imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using other medium. Now, let's look at what effective communication means. Effective communication is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, and information such that the purpose or intention is fulfilled in the best possible manner. There is a difference between communication and effective communication. And today, we're going to be seeing what role this has played towards this unrest and what role it can play towards ending it. Joining me for this conversation this morning, we have two guests. I'll start with the only gent with us in studio this morning, Fred Abok. He is a mentor, a motivational speaker, as well as one of our resident guests here on Good Morning Kenya. Karibu sana, Abok.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you for making time always to be with us.
Thank you.
Also, we have a lady with us in studio. She is Joyce Mghoi Macharia. She is the chair of career services at Chuka University. Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning.
Thank you once again for being with us today.
Thank you too.
Now, I want to start with you, Abok, and speaking as a parent, very honestly, let us just be honest. I will also give my opinion. As a parent, do you think you exercise communication or effective communication with your kids?
Thank you, Jen. Communication is very essential, and especially parents. You know, the effectiveness of communication depends on how you received it on yourself. Because as much as you receive is all you're able to give.
Yes.
So most parents, on a prayer that they're doing effective communication,
Yes.
they are communicating.
Yes.
They are just communicating what needs to be communicated or what they think
Yes.
should be communicated, but not what necessarily should be communicated.
All right.
Yeah.
Lakini hujanijibu bado, Abok. Do you fall among that category of most parents?
All right. Being that I'm a parent, at sometimes I've fallen in it until I got to understand what effective communication is.
All right.
But definitely, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me come to you, Joyce, as well. Same question in terms of exercising communication and effective communication.
Yeah, sometimes, yes, I communicate effectively.
Yeah.
And other times I may not communicate effectively because when you are communicating, there are many things that are at play.
Yes.
Sometimes emotions are at play. Sometimes there are many things that are at play. So there are times you may communicate and may not communicate effectively, and there are other times that you may communicate effectively.
All right.
So yes, in life you may communicate effectively and sometimes not effectively.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, bringing this issue of effective communication to what we have been seeing with our children, because critics were arguing that this unrest that we are seeing with our children is as a result of how parents were with their children at home, and consequently, they're just acting out when they're coming to school. Now, bringing this conversation to the school space, do you also think when it comes to how our teachers go about handling the kids could have contributed in terms of communication to this unrest? Let me start with you, Abok.
Nothing further from the truth, Jain, because most of the time that the teachers do communicate is based on reactive element. You know, reactive element has some, it's coupled up with some emotional dynamics.
Yes.
That ends up distorting the element of communication. You know, everyone who finds themselves in wrong is always attempting to do something right.
Yes.
So every other time that you react on to what the attempts are, you're actually pushing them onto the limit and letting them know what, I can actually do it further more wrong. Yes.
All right. Now, I want us to start by looking at a few aspects of communication that, you know, we could use and carry along when it comes to making sure that we are better able to communicate with our kids. And let me come to you, Joyce. Let us start by looking at the issue of listening. When it comes to communication between parents and children, are we active listeners, or we just listen to respond, but not always to understand what our kids are saying?
Again, it also depends on the circumstances of the situation, because sometimes, yes, parents sit down and listen, and sometimes parents don't listen because they already have a preconceived mind of what probably the child is going to say, or what is going on with the child. So they may not really listen, but they may pass information depending on what they are thinking should be done and should be in place. So it is true that parents need to learn to listen, and listen, you know, listen to the verbal and also to the non-verbal communication, because there is a lot in communication. You can communicate verbally, you can communicate non-verbally. So it's very important for parents to listen to the children, their non-verbal communication, their verbal communication, and then when they are responding, they are responding in thinking of all these things that are playing part. The same to the teachers. When the students are communicating, they need to listen to these students. What are they communicating? Non-verbal and verbal communication. Then from there, they can be able now to give a feedback, because effective communication must have, you know, the information sent and the information coming back, the feedback, you know, the sender and the receiver. And there must be that complete cycle of information. So it's very important for the parents to listen and listen to non-verbal communication and verbal communication. Then give a feedback which will now be effective in resolving whatever conflict that there is. All
right. So from what you are saying, you listen to understand what your child is saying, not just to respond because they were speaking. Remember, this is the conversation we're having today, and we welcome you to be part of this. Share with us your thoughts, questions, clarifications, comments. We will be addressing them in a bit. But before we get to that, let us take a sip of our coffee. We'll be back with this conversation. Stay with us.